Before the season, I picked the New York Giants to finish 6-10, and part of the reason was when I saw the number of moves and the amount of money they were spending in free agency. That was letting me know that the Giants organization realized that they hadn't done that well in recent drafts, which they really hadn't, and that they had a lot of holes all over the place. And typically, when you try to build your team and really truly restock and replenish your team via free agency, it's not going to go that well. Combine that with the fact that you were changing offensive coordinators after so many years of Eli Manning working with Kevin Gilbride, going to really a different type of offensive system. I just didn't see where 2014 was going to be all that successful. Combined with the fact that I thought this might be Tom Coughlin's last year and that he could end up losing this locker room, I thought 6-10 would be a good season for the Giants. And the season for this Giants team was really up and down. You know, they lose their first 2 games. Then they win their next 3. Then they lose 6 in a row right in the heart of the season. But then they finish the season 3-1 in December. This is a hard kind of team to figure out, frankly. I mean, you've got some quality wins in there, but you've also got a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, I'm just saying. You look at this Giants team, you're like, yeah, they've got Eli, but, you know, is he starting to decline? Then you just look at this team in general and you see a defense that isn't nearly the same defense that we had grown accustomed to over the years under Tom Coughlin in New York. You see an offense that maybe has a piece here, maybe has a piece there, but really lacks a true identity and really lacks certain elite qualities. Same thing, frankly, for the defensive side of the ball. You see a mediocre team, and that's exactly what the Giants were in 2014. They didn't disappoint. They didn't exceed expectations. They were exactly who I thought they were going to be. And it's not all that surprising to me. You look at this team both offensively and defensively, starting off with the offense in 2014. It's funny because you change the system with a veteran quarterback like Eli, and you could make an argument that technically Eli Manning had his best statistical season. And that may very well be the case. Although there were times where you looked at him and you also saw elements of where this guy looked like his better days may clearly be behind him. And in fact, he might be washed up. A real kind of, even though statistically doesn't necessarily bear it out, a real kind of up and down season, I think, for Eli Manning in this new system. Will 2015 be better for him in the second year of that offense? Only time will tell. But he did have those moments where he still looked like a franchise quarterback. He had those moments where he still made those big-time plays in big-time games. And to be fair, what really changed this Giants offense was when Odell Beckham Jr. finally came on the scene after his hamstring injury. You're talking about an Odell Beckham Jr. that just tore shit up in the league. From a wide receiver standpoint, the last guy that I've seen do that come into the league and immediately just wreck shit up was Randy Moss. And I don't throw around that type of compliment to any type of rookie, let alone a wide receiver. In fact, you could argue I throw around that type of compliment like a manhole cover. But when I look at an Odell Beckham Jr. and what he was able to do in basically 3/4 of a season, outstanding, incredible, one of the truly special weapons on the outside in the National Football League, even after just one season. And I don't think anybody will dispute that now. Holy Christ. And you look at them offensively. I mean, they were 13th in points scored, 10th in total yards. You know, so they had the ability to move the ball, and they had the ability to put some points on the board too, especially once you got Odell Beckham Jr. in the mix, even though they ended up losing Victor Cruz. That certainly didn't help. But defensively, you're talking about a team that allowed 6 times 30 or more points, 22nd in points allowed, 29th in yards. But they got 4th in the league in total sacks. So they were able to get to opposing quarterbacks, generate pressure like you would expect out of typical Coughlin defenses, but they gave up a shit ton of yards and they gave up a shit ton of points. It's just really surprising. They were able to really rush the passer well throughout many portions of 2014, hence why they finished 4th in the league in sacks. But they really couldn't stop anybody, and they really couldn't stop anybody from scoring. You would think for a defense that has been built off of the concept for years of getting pressure with the front 4 on opposing quarterbacks, and that being the key to success, that when they would get pressure on those quarterbacks, that it would bode for great success for them. But the back 7 of their defense is so doo-doo, frankly, that it really didn't matter all that much. when you look at this Giants team in the offseason, like I referenced earlier, they spent a lot of money in free agency, and I don't really think they necessarily got a whole lot of bang for their buck. In terms of their draft, I thought they had a little bit better draft than what they've had in maybe some previous years. Obviously, I was a big Odell Beckham Jr. fan. You guys know that have watched me long enough. I was very huge on this guy. Love the pick for the New York Giants, and he was even way more than I anticipated he was going to be. The one knock I had on OBJ3 coming out of LSU was his hands. Well, we've clearly seen he's worked on that issue, and he's fixed that for sure. Drafting Weston Richburg, who started a good portion of the year at left guard. You've got Andre Williams, your fourth-round pick, kind of that Brandon Jacobs type of thumper as a running back. It was a draft class that they got some contributions out of, and it's a draft class that will pay some dividends, maybe more so next year than it did this year. But this is a mediocre team with a lot of holes to fill. I was a little surprised to see that Tom Coughlin would be coming back in 2015. Maybe that time has come. It's awkward. It's hard to say because this is a coach that's won 2 Super Bowls there. But 6-10 is 6-10, and the past couple of years haven't been that particularly good. So how much longer are you going to allow Coughlin to coast? And I guess the thing is at this point, with Eli maybe arguably having his best, if not at least one of his best statistical seasons in a brand new offensive scheme, that you're not going to move on from Eli just yet. As a result, as long as you've got Eli, you're going to have Coughlin. I don't know, maybe that's the approach and the philosophy. But in this offseason, this team needs to address several things. First and foremost, on the defensive side of the ball. You're really not going to go anywhere if you're the Giants with a defensive-minded head coach and a team that for years has always enjoyed success the most when their defense played the best, allowing as many points as you are, finishing 29th in total yards allowed. You need help, in particular in the back seven of that defense. The Giants for years have criminally neglected their linebacker position for reasons that are unbeknownst to me. I understand the priority has always been the versatility and the flexibility of the rushers in the front four. But, man, you got to have something other than that on your defense. Their linebacking core has been criminally neglected. They're either old or they're slow or they suck or a combination of multiple factors, if not all of those factors that I just listed. Then you look at the safety position. You've got Antrell Roll, who's probably going to have his way out of town. And they really don't have anything else, frankly, at that safety position. This is a defense that needs some help in that back seven, and you could always argue again because of the type of system that they run and what they need that they could always use another defensive end. I look at Jason Pierre-Paul. He had 12 and a half of the quietest sacks I've ever seen this year. He really did. They could use another big-time edge rusher because I'm not sure if a Demontre Moore is going to do that. And I thought Jonathan Hankins stepped up and played well in the kind of Linval Joseph role. But, again, he's not an edge rusher. They could use another real-time edge rusher like they used to have when they had 3-4 guys that could really get after the quarterback. And then on offense, I think one thing the Giants need is a big physical wide receiver. When you look at the OBJs and you look at the Victor Cruzes and you look at the Ruben Randalls, they're very similar in terms of style of play and type of receiver. And, I'm always a big proponent of having different types of talents at that position. I think you need contrast. You need different skill sets because if everybody's the same, it's a little bit easier to game plan or defend against. They need that big physical type of Plaxico Burress type of wide receiver. They really, truly do. They need that big-time red zone target that could take some of the pressure off of Odell Beckham Jr. They also need to prepare for the possibility of Victor Cruz coming off of that torn patella not being the same player ever again. They've also found themselves in a situation where they'll have to make a decision sometime in 2015 on Ruben Randall and whether or not they want to pay him big-time money that he clearly doesn't deserve. They need some help at that wide receiver position because you have to make sure that you protect Odell Beckham Jr. because he's going to be your offensive star for the next decade. And as a result, you have to help him out. And then you look at that offensive line, too. This is an offensive line that did a much better job of protecting Eli in 2014. At times was okay in their run blocking. But you look at this offensive line, Will Beatty struggles to stay healthy, and I'm not sure he's anybody's idea of a big-time left tackle. Justin Pugh playing at the right tackle position. Shameful thing is he's got really good feet, but he's got really short arms and not the strongest guy. May very well be better off suited inside at guard. They need to protect Eli Manning. They need to help him out. And the way to do that, along with giving him that big physical Plaxico Burress type of wide receiver that he so desperately needs in that offense, he also needs some protection from an offensive line. And they need to still address the offensive line position. Drafting Richburg in the second round was a good start. Drafting Pugh in 2013 in the first round was a good start. But the job's not done. They still need to address that position.